been quite a week in the football world. Chelsea finished fourth in the Premier League last week after Leicester slipped up in the league at home to Tottenham of all teams, and Chelsea were able to get some revenge for being beaten in the FA Cup final. Atletico Madrid won the La Liga. They closely pipped Real Madrid, and over in France, Lille kind of also trumped over PSG. In fact, the PSG were probably humbled by Lille, I would say. And in midweek, we saw the mighty Manchester United lose out in an epic penalty shootout to Villarreal, who only won their first major trophy in their entire history. So, congrats to the Yellow Submarine. And now we're at the cusp of arguably the biggest game in club football, the Champions League final, Chelsea versus Man City, or should I say Russian oil money versus Arab oil money. So today we have Manan and Navin. Manan supports the darker blue shade of Chelsea, and Navin supports the sky blue hue of City. Welcome, gentlemen, to this podcast.
Hey Supreet.
Hey,
Hey
Supreet.
Navin.
Thanks. Hi, Manan.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure there's a mixed bag of nerves and excitement for tomorrow's final. Let's get started with Manan. It's been quite the season, starting off with Frank Lampard, a club legend, and then Lampard obviously getting sacked midway through the season. Results not entirely going his way. Chelsea bringing in an experienced, comparatively experienced managerial head in Tuchel from PSG. And Tuchel has done wonders, taken Chelsea to two finals. He's introduced his authority, he's introduced his brand of football, an aggressive style of play where Chelsea look a lot more decisive, Chelsea look a lot more mean. Um, and it's shown it's paid off dividends, right? This managerial change. So
Yeah.
let's get started with understanding what Chelsea's formation is going to be. Is it going to be his regular 3-4-3, three at the back, two overlapping fullbacks, two defensive midfielders, and three up front? Or do you think he's going to do a one-off and change the formation?
I think he will persist with what the formula has been working so far. So I don't foresee any major tweaks in the formation or the shape. To be honest, what I would be more interested in is knowing what roles he gives to the midfield in particular, especially the likes of Mount and Conte. Because we've seen that Conte can play multiple roles. He's not just a destroyer. He was one of the biggest creative threats against Real Madrid in that second leg. So
Yeah,
I think I'm sorry, the first leg. So I think he's been immense. So it will be interesting to see what individual instructions he gives to these players.
yeah.
And yeah, but in terms of shape, I really don't think, barring any major injuries at the last minute, I really don't think there'll be a change of shape from Tuchel at least.
Okay, and okay, so there are obviously a few question marks around some positions, right? I think the back three is pretty settled. Aspilicueta, Silva, and Rudiger. Rudiger is in fact put in some solid performances over the last few games. But at left back, we've seen a little bit of Marcus Alonso recently.
Yeah.
Do you think he could probably choose Alonso because he's better at the on the overlap, or will he choose Chilwell, who's probably better defensively and maybe better equipped to handle someone like Riyad Mahrez?
I think it has to be Chilwell. It's a no-brainer really for me because, like you correctly pointed out, Alonso may be the next version of Roberto Carlos going forward, but he's an absolute liability at the back. So, in the biggest game of the season, I don't see any chance of him starting, barring, like I said, any last-minute injury to Chilwell. So it has to be Chilwell who will start for me because he's not his attacking work is also a little underrated in my view. He's got what, two, three, four goals already this season, and one was obviously ruled out by the tightest of margins in the FA Cup final. So I think his attacking work, his offensive work is also underrated, and he's probably 10 times better defensively than Marcus Alonso. So it's a no-brainer for me at the left wing back position at least.
Yeah. One of the main reasons I think a lot of pundits were saying Alonso could start is because of his height, which comes handy during corners. But I think Chelsea have enough of that to deal with players like Diaz or probably even Laporta. Um, but I think, yeah, Chilwell makes sense. Up front, there are a few question marks though. I mean, I think Timo Werner and Mason Mount are probably going to start. But the third attacking position, right up front, I mean,
Hmm.
there are three candidates. There's Pulisic, who's been in and out throughout the season. There's been Ziyech,
Yeah.
who's again been in and out, and there's Havertz as well, right? Again, another player who's not. I mean, all three of them have not particularly, been consistent throughout. Who's going to be your pick?
I think it has to be Havertz for me. There are two or three reasons I can think of because when it comes to Pulisic, he had a fine game against Real Madrid. Obviously, in the first leg, he ran them ragged and scored the away goal. But ever since then, he's not been that consistent. He's been drifting through games. He's not really having an impact. And I think his best use for Chelsea is more from the bench because when the legs are tiring in midfield and in defense, I think he can come on and do his thing. Take players on, and he has that trickery in his locker to unlock defenses when they're naturally tiring and after a certain point in time. So I think that is his best role, unfortunately for the time being, until he really picks up his consistency. Ziyech again, highly inconsistent. He's better than what his numbers show this season, and well, ironically, his last two goals have been against City. But
Yeah,
he's quite slow on the counter, and you can't expect Chelsea to dominate possession against Guardiola side. So the strategy should will most likely be on. Playing on the counter, and Ziyech is not that quick enough to, I think, sustain a full-on counter-attacking move between the front three. So, and obviously, given the fact that he's quite one-footed as well, so the all City defense and midfield has to do is show him on his left foot and basically you nullify him. So
yeah.
that leaves Havertz, who has impressed obviously in the big games. I felt he was the one of the best players on the pitch against Real Madrid in the second leg, and he gives that added threat aerially as well. So particularly in set pieces and crosses. So I think for me, Havertz wins this battle between him, Pulisic, and Ziyech.
That's interesting. And at the, I mean, for the keeper's position, obviously, Mendy, very recently injured, but he's been seen in training. What are the chances he's going to start? And I know you'll probably start him even if he's on a crutch. But what are the chances that Mendy is going to start?
Oh, I think he has to start. There's no other option really. Predominantly because we don't have many better options, to be frank. And he did train, from what I can see in the pictures, and also he's traveled, he's trained, and all in all, he looks set to start. In case he doesn't, it's incredibly harsh on Kepa because he has endured a lot during his time with the club, but there cannot be any loyalty really. So I would in fact give a start to Caballero if he's not fit enough to start, unfortunately. But yeah, that's how it is. But all said and done, I think he should be fit. So that's at least one scare less for, on a big day.
He had a. I mean, Kepa did have a pretty good game against Leicester, though. I mean, you can't really blame him being short for conceding that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do not blame Kepa for that goal. I blame Tuchel for picking him to start really, because like like I mentioned in the other discussion that you see how close it was to his hands. A bigger keeper, taller keeper with longer hands would probably get to that ball. So I mean, obviously there are a lot of multiple factors in terms of positioning and all, but yeah, I think Mendy could have saved that. So, like I said, it's not Kepa's fault that he's short for a goalkeeper. But yeah, it is what it is. What it is, unfortunately, and it's a very viable tactic for opposition because we've seen this time and time again last season under Frank. The likes of Zaha scored, the likes of J. Rodriguez scored from distance. So people have been shooting from distance, even Kevin De Bruyne for that matter. So I think yeah, that is a very viable tactic against Kepa. So given that, I would be really hesitant to start him in the final.
Okay, so Manan, what would your starting 11 be if you were Tuchel?
I would go for Mendy in goal, obviously. Aspilicueta, Thiago Silva, Rudiger at the back. I do not want Reece James playing at right hand side of the back three again. He's been good, but Aspilicueta is a liability as a wing back, unfortunately, as good as he is defensively. So that would be my back three. Wing backs would be Chile and Reece. So obviously that double threat on the flanks gives us a lot of attacking impetus. Jorginho Conte in midfield because I feel that Jorginho plays probably five times as better with Conte as a partner than Kovacic.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, front three, like I said, of Mount, Werner, and Havertz.
Great. So I'll come back to you, Manan, and we'll probably talk a little bit about tactics and how both the managers will approach the game. But I'll let's kind of get Naveen's thoughts on what City's formation and starting 11 is going to be. So Naveen, Guardiola is known to overthink and and at times it has worked against him. So do you think he's going to go with his trusted 4-4-2 or his trusted 4-2-3-1 with the false nine, someone like Bernardo Silva playing just off the striker, or do you think he's going to just shake it up for tomorrow's big game?
Yeah, I really hope he does not overthink. He's not done that throughout the Champions League this season. Uh, but I think it's going to be a 4-3-3 with a false nine. De Bruyne probably in that role. Uh, yeah, and so previously we have seen the 4-2-3-1, wherein the two defensive midfielders are usually Rodri and Fernandinho. That has not really worked
Yeah.
for us. I don't think so. He's going to make
Hmm.
that same mistake again, especially in the finals. I hope he does not. I think it's going to be a traditional 4-3-3 with a false nine.
Okay, and obviously similar to Chelsea, there are some. I wouldn't call them selection headaches, but selection decisions rather that Guardiola will need to make. I mean, in the center of defense, I think Ruben Diaz picks himself up.
Yeah,
The question is, does he pick up, Stones, who's been solid this season, or does he pick up Laporta to partner Diaz at the back?
yeah. I think it's going to be Stones along with Diaz. Uh, their partnership has been really nice, and recently Stones has had more games than Laporte. I am not.
Yeah,
I don't think so. Laporte will suddenly start the Champions League for us. It's definitely going to be Stones and Diaz. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, and at fullback,
Mm,
I mean, I think Kyle Walker pretty much picks himself at right back,
mm.
but uh, at left back there are a few options that City have. Cancelo obviously can play both right back and left back. Um, there's Zinchenko, good on the ball, solid defensively, and Mendy as well, right?
Yes.
Uh, and I mean, all three of them have kind of played at left back this season. Who do you think is going to get the nod?
Yeah. So Mendy definitely not. He's not starting for us. Uh, but I was surprised to see Cancelo play the second semi-final. I don't think Zinchenko was injured. I may be wrong, but I think Zinchenko is definitely starting on the left, and he would be trying to put in his balls, you know, uh, into the final third from there. And on the right, Kyle Walker would get the nod ahead of, say, Cancelo, who can play on both the wings. But yeah,
Yeah. And you also talked about, Rodri and Fernandinho starting in the center of midfield. Obviously, it's not worked out.
yeah,
Rodri probably much better operating, as a sole holding midfielder, so to say.
yes, yes,
And and what has worked for Rodri is, you know, winning the ball, allowing and kind of playing players like Gundogan and Silva and De Bruyne, through the channels. So I think Guardiola is probably going to stick to Rodri there. However, around Rodri, there are a lot of decisions that Pep's probably going to take. Uh, there are I mean, in both the games against Chelsea recently in the cup semi-final and in the league game,
mm,
he started with Torres and Sterling up front.
yeah,
Two strikers up front. City ended up losing both.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, do you see him persisting with them, or is Sterling not going to get the nod? And probably someone like he'll probably pack the midfield with De Bruyne, Silva, and Gundogan. So, I mean, what do you think is going to be his midfield setup?
Yeah, I think Fernandinho would start, and on the right we would have Bernardo Silva helping him because he often tracks back pretty well. And a few instances I have also seen him very temporarily playing as a central midfielder when others are ahead. So I think Bernardo Silva and Fernandinho and Gundogan would start in the midfield, and De Bruyne would be the false nine, almost as a striker actually. And on the left we would have
Yeah,
Foden, and on the right we would have Mahrez. And one more thing, though, a bit odd, which was in the last game against Everton. So when Aguero came in, Rodri was also brought in, and Fernandinho was playing
yeah.
almost as a right winger, and he ended up giving two assists to Aguero. That was, I don't know why he was playing in that role and why he was playing 90 minutes in the first place. But
Probably a preview for Tuchel of what might happen
yeah, either that or
but
just to
yeah,
confuse him, just to make him think a bit more in that direction. I certainly don't think in the finals Fernandinho would play a similar role. But yeah, I think it's going to be a more traditional approach.
yeah. Aguero's final game, any chance of emotions getting the better of Pep and him starting with Aguero up front, or or Aguero probably doesn't have the legs anymore to last, a grueling Champions League final.
Yeah, malab, probably Pep is the last manager to let emotions get the better of him. And no, he won't. Aguero sadly won't start. He might give him a few minutes if we are comfortable towards the end. But very good chance that we don't see him on the pitch at all.
Yeah. So Naveen, what would your starting 11 be if you were Pep?
Yeah, so it would be Ederson in goal, and Walker, Diaz, Stones, and Zinchenko, the back four, and
Hmm.
Bernardo Silva, Fernandinho, and Gundogan in the midfield, and ahead would be Foden, De Bruyne, and Riyad Mahrez.
Okay, that sounds like some lineup. Coming back to you, Manan. Um, Listening to that City lineup, I know it's kind of intimidating, but if history is to say anything, I mean, Tuchel has won his two recent battles against Pep, with Pep starting very similar lineups to what Naveen has just mentioned. Essentially, what worked for Tuchel is you know playing aggressive and high press and maintaining that compact formation that Chelsea have always been good at, right?
Yeah.
Is it going to work in the in the final, or do you see a lot Chelsea opening up a lot more and probably expressing themselves, or because it's a big game, Chelsea probably need to score a goal um, within probably the first half if they're to get close to the trophy. How do you think this is going to pan out?
I think, at least from what I can see, so first of all, we did not play a full strength City side in either of those two games. So there is that, because City, at least in the league, they were quite relaxed. They already had their hands on the title, so they didn't really have to go out there and risk any of the key players. So Pep also sort of went with a weird system, 3-3-1-3 or something like that. So I think that was a key component of it as well.
Yeah,
Secondly, I think from a Chelsea point of view, I don't have any doubts in my mind that we have to score first if we are to stand any chance of winning this. Because the thing with this team is that I've seen over the past two seasons is we've rarely come back from behind to beat an opposition. Ironically, we did against City itself recently, but the mentality here is a little fragile, is what I can see, or I can sense rather, in the sense that whenever like we have gone behind, we tend to lose our heads. That's what happened against Aston Villa as well. So
yeah,
which is not a great sign. So if we have, like I said, if we have to stand any chance of winning, we have to score first. And yeah, then we are actually good at defending, because Tuchel, the one good thing that Tuchel has done since replacing Lampard is that he's made us hard to beat, and he's made
hmm.
us more disciplined off the ball. So that is, I think, something that really makes me that's what I think gives us the best opportunity to get something from this, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, hands down, City are the favorites in my view.
Yeah, but yeah, that's true. But in terms of staying compact, Chelsea have the the discipline and the I would say the battling ability of Kante. Um, but what's going to be a little important for Chelsea is to get Werner and Mount in those positions, especially Mount, because he looks probably Chelsea's best attacking player at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Werner is obviously misfired. He scored 12 goals overall this season. He's had more goals disallowed, obviously,
Yeah.
but he still remains, very important focal point for Chelsea, and he kind of proved that in the cup semi-final, right, when he assisted Ziyech. Um,
Yeah.
Up front with with City having Diaz at the back, along with Stones, how do you see that panning out, right? How does Chelsea's interplay up front work? Do you see Tuchel making a necessary substitution if things are not working out with, let's say he starts with Havertz, right? Or do you think he'll persist with
Mm-hmm.
his starting 11 for long?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the idea would be to, I mean, as good as Stones has been, I think the idea would be to target him mostly, and the left back, because again, Zinchenko is a fantastic player and his versatility is really, really good, but he's not a natural left back. So he will leave spaces in behind. And same goes for Walker, but he's just incredibly quick. So it's really difficult to find spaces behind Walker. But Zinchenko is someone you can target. So I can see that happening from a tactical point of view. And regarding the attack, I think yeah, Tuchel will have to rely on Werner's pace and his ability to play
Yeah,
off the last man, because City
yeah,
will most likely play a high line, and but they will also be wary of Werner's pace. So I think they would be expecting a counter-attacking style from Chelsea. So it's a fascinating battle between two of the best tacticians in the game right now. But in terms of Chelsea, I think if it's not working out, I think yeah, that third spot that we are just talking about, Havertz, that is most likely to sort of get into a conveyor belt. Maybe Havertz can give way to Pulisic or Ziyech for all we know. So that is the most likely substitution I can see happening at this point in time. But it all depends on the dynamic of the game, how the game is panning out.
yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the day, if we are winning, I don't think Tuchel will make many changes, at least early on in the second half.
Hmm. And Naveen, talking about City obviously love keeping the ball. They love
Mm.
possession. Um, we've never seen City approach a game negatively. Obviously, uh, they love exploiting spaces within the opposition. And how is that going to work against Chelsea? Do you think Pep will do anything different? It's obviously the third time he's facing Tuchel's
Yeah.
Chelsea. He's lost on the previous two occasions, and Chelsea is probably going to play a high line, right? How are City going to probably line up tactically, or in terms of, I would say, approach to this game?
Yeah. So Foden and Mahrez would be key to get in between and have those crosses in. Uh, if Espilicueta starts, he's on the right. Foden, I mean, there would be a big chance for Foden to trouble him constantly, and that would really help us. It will help us to get more, in the center once he has the ball. And Mahrez does his own things usually, so I think we would be relying a lot on Mahrez and Foden to send the ball in the center and into the box. And occasionally, Gundogan also joins in, usually at the center along with De Bruyne. So that is going to help us a lot.
Okay, and when you talk about key battles between for tomorrow, one key battle that I probably see is is De Bruyne and the other attacking midfielder depends on who Pep starts. It could be Gundogan, or it could be Silva versus Kante and Jorginho. I have a feeling that midfield battle is going to decide the outcome of the game. Um, do you also think it'll depend on this particular battle, or do you see the winner emerging out of somewhere else?
Yeah, so I'm sure, according to me, Tuchel would have a slightly more defensive setup to counter, the threat by De Bruyne and Silva or Gundogan, as you mentioned. Uh, but that said, earlier, whenever City has lost games, we have often seen that when ball is around Gundogan or De Bruyne, there are around two or three uh, players around them to press, so that they don't have enough time to pass and think. I think it's going to be a similar approach from Tuchel, and if we are able to get the better of Kante and Jorginho, it would make life
Yeah,
easier for our winger especially, and
yeah,
that is when the Foden and Mahrez effect would come into picture. So yeah, it's going to be an
yeah.
interesting battle indeed. Yeah.
And Manan, Naveen just mentioned Foden and Maris. They'll be up against Chilwell and James. I mean, are you worried about that battle? I mean, these battles on the wing.
Yeah, I think
I would like to think
just
that,
to add, I think if James starts,
yeah,
it would be slightly difficult to go past him. I think he's been very good in the previous match. He was easily handling the wingers, and I hope Aspilicueta starts. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's more Foden and Mahrez versus Aspilicueta and Rudiger, because I think the full wing backs will be more battling against their full backs. So that's how I would probably see this panning out. So Aspilicueta, I think shortly will start. Naveen, so you're golden there, but I think he'll be in a much better position at defending deeper and being a right-sided centre back. So I
Hmm.
think that's where his abilities lie, and he's excellent on one-on-one defending. So there's no question about that. The only place where he gets beat is on pace and in
Yeah.
height. So,
Yeah.
but in terms of tackling and stopping attackers in the box, I think he's one of the best in the league. It's an interesting battle nonetheless. In my view, I think we are up for a cracker of a game. It's just about, it'll be a game of fine margins. I think, even though I sometimes feel that City will thrash us, but I think we're not that bad that we'll probably get beat by the highest margin in a Champions League final.
Yeah. All right. I think Manan, you kind of summed it up very well, which brings us to the final segment, predictions. I'll start with you, Naveen. What's your prediction for the final score tomorrow?
Uh, I think, as Manan also mentioned, it's going to be a game of fine margins. I see nil-nil at the end of 90 minutes, and in the extra
Hmm.
time, I hope City wins 1-0. I think 1-0. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you're going for a very cagey
Yeah,
affair,
yeah.
or are you going for an open match but a lot of missed chances?
No, it's going to be a KG affair because, as I think Tuchel would have a very defensive setup, so it's going to be a very KG affair.
Okay, so you're expecting City to bombard Chelsea, but with no, with no luck for the first 90 minutes, and this game going to an extra time with City probably scoring the winner.
Yeah, so whenever
So a 1-0
City
win.
lose possession, obviously Chelsea would also
Hmm.
try to go ahead. It's not that they would park the bus or something, but yeah, eventually I think it's going to be tactically very cancelling out both the teams. Both the teams would cancel out, and it's
Yeah.
going to be 0-0 at the end of 90 minutes, and 1-0 to City hopefully at the end of 120 minutes.
Okay, and Manan, what's your prediction?
As much as it hurts to say, I think I agree with Naveen, but just not about the extra time bit. I think City will win 1-0 in regulation time. Because yeah, I mean they're just too good. The match will definitely be cagey because most of these players have probably not played at such a level before in a Champions League final before, so they
Hmm.
will be a little there'll be a little nerves
Hmm.
here and there. But I think yeah, City are just too good to let this slip, and I think Guardiola also wants to win this badly. and I hope we win, but I'm expecting City to take the trophy home.
Yeah, man,
Unfortunately,
you're trying too hard, man, to jinx it now.
no, no, there's no jinx really. It's just fact. I want us to win. I'm not saying that I don't.
Sure,
I am
sure.
desperate for this win, but I think City are just too good. I would have rather faced PSG in the final, to be honest.
Okay, and okay, I mean, I think you've kind of been very clear about the predictions, but do you by any chance see this going to penalties like how it did in the Europa League final?
God, I hope not. I don't think I'll be able to watch. To be honest, the history suggests it will though, because the last two finals we were in both went to penalties. So I really hope that doesn't happen. Really, no matter who wins, I hope it happens in the 90 minutes itself, so I can peacefully sleep after that.
Okay. Thanks, Manan and Naveen, for this very riveting discussion. I wish, I mean, I wouldn't like any of you winning the trophy tomorrow, but unfortunately, one of you will have to win the trophy. So, all the best to both of you, and may the best team win. And thank you, everyone, for joining today's podcast discussion.
Yeah, Supreet, what's your prediction?
Oh, my prediction is 2-0 to City.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm being very. I mean, if I wanted to jinx it, I would probably say 1-0 to Chelsea or something.
Hmm.
But I think City are too powerful, and I think they. I think Pep knows this is his time to win the Champions League. Getting into the final again next season is it's going to come with its own set of
True.
challenges. I
Yeah.
think his team also knows that.
Yeah.
Chelsea look a little leggy, having this long season that's just gone by, and they've just played a cup final. They've been stuttering about a little bit in the league, so I think this is and City have kind of been well rested, right? They've just taken the final few Premier League games very
Yeah.
lightly,
True.
just they're scoring goals for fun against Everton. They had a little bit of a tough game against Spurs. I mean, when I say tough, they bossed it, but it was a game of fine margins again, winning 1-0. I think tomorrow's final is going to be slightly easier. It's going to be a 2-0 win according to me.
Okay.
Anyways, all the best to both of you, and hope to catch with you guys soon for the season review.
Yeah.
Sure, man.